This is Granules of Grief with Refiloe, a podcast breaking down into digestible pieces the big lump that is grief. For those still struggling with its enormity, those unfamiliar, and even those who found a version of living that is somewhat closer to the aliveness they had before the loss. Thank you for being here. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with one of my oldest friends. I'm speaking to Refiloe Kikine, who I have known, 2 decades. I think I've known for over 20 years, I think. Yes.
Pretty
it would
much.
be. I mean, high school. Yes. High school was a good 20 years ago. So we were initially bonded by books, a crazy sense of humor. But I think, among other things, I think that we share and that we've shared over the years. But what brings us together here is we're brought together for this episode by grief. And I haven't even said this to Refiloe herself, but one of the things that made me think of you is you were not someone who mourned, I think, as publicly as I did. But I think there was a status that you had either on WhatsApp or somewhere that always got to me. It was such a quiet mourning. You were mourning quietly, but those words sunk deep into my soul when I read them. It was, and you'll correct me, but it was something like the problem is we think we have time. Those are the words that made me think of you when I thought to do this and think that you might add to this conversation around grief and around what it means to grieve the loss of someone so beloved. I'm just going to let you introduce yourself, Friendly.
Thanks, Friendly. You and I have the same names, ironically, but I think that's the other thing that brought us together. You forgot to mention that part. So I'm a mother to the cutest little boy ever. He's such a bliss. Motherhood has been quite a roller coaster, I must say. I don't know. I mean, I think other days I still have to pinch myself to actually realize that, gosh, I'm a mother. I don't know. It still hasn't sunk in. I don't know how people feel about motherhood, but does it ever really sink in, though? That's another question.
I know.
I don't think it does.
I mean, let me talk about myself. It doesn't. It is, for me, it's constantly, I don't want to say overwhelming because it isn't always overwhelming, but I think I'm always overwhelmed by the idea that I created two people.
Yeah. The idea alone.
Exactly. And that now these two people are my lifelong concern. Literally, the biggest concern you'll ever have. It's like, for me, the gravest concern I'll ever have for anybody. For these two people, and I can't take it away. It's part of the love package, right? The package of love that they bring. It's also this constant worry for them. I think for me that's what I always have to go back to. Like, this is your human being.
Your person. Like, I mean, so yeah, I'm just enjoying it as it comes. But besides being a mother, I'm also a sister to other people. Also a friend. I think that's pretty much it. A wife. I don't really like to identify myself as that, though, because it's not really. But yes, that as well.
I know exactly what you mean. It's important. Yeah, it's important, right? But I also understand that hesitance, obviously.
Why?
But why? Yep. It's the way a woman will be everything, but then the only role she'll be expected to perfect, and the only role really upheld by society is wife. So if you move a mountain, literally, no one cares if you don't bring the wife title to the table.
Like, even if you push the whole human being out of you, no one really cares. I mean, they care for a short while, but no, but you're a wife.
Exactly.
Like, excuse me.
Your wife.
No.
This is the crown you're supposed to carry the highest. This is the biggest trophy that you're supposed to. Exactly. So I understand the hesitance. The gender dynamics have really made it hard to feel pride in this thing that there's no problem with feeling pride in it. But yeah.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that is me in a nutshell, really.
All right, Fender. Thank you. It's an amazing moment to sit with you. So what was your most significant encounter with grief?
That would definitely be the passing of my mother. And you know, sometimes I think, I don't know if it's a way of my brain kind of trying to self-preserve, but sometimes I just forget how many years it has been. I literally find myself having to count back to say, oh gosh, she passed in 2017. And as much as, you know, it's been a couple of years, in my head, it still feels like probably yesterday or not that long ago. But yeah, the biggest encounter was definitely the passing of my mom in 2017,
Yes.
unexpectedly so. Or at least we weren't really expecting it. I don't know if anybody's ever really expecting their loved ones to die, but I feel like there are instances where, you know, death is like looming. With my mother, it was just such a far-fetched idea. I don't think anybody really expects, you know, their loved ones to die unless, for example, you know, you can already see death looming somehow. And maybe it's been a very long-winded illness for whatever reason. But other than that, I don't think we really ever expect somebody to die suddenly, and which was the case with my mother in this instance. So yeah, so the very first encounter really was losing her back in 2017.
Yeah, like I said, this is definitely a very different episode for me because it's also the first episode where I also, even if not intimately, but do know the person. And my first memory of your mom is obviously, I think, parents' meeting. Never met her a lot because of our living in different towns, but I do remember the first time I saw her was parents' meeting, and she was just so graceful. She was with your sister, with your dad. I have that very clear memory. That's my first memory of your mom. But now tell me more about your mom. Who was she, really? Obviously, it's years and years worth of who she was. But what are your favorite things about her? Who was she, and what do you remember the most about who she was?
So, gosh, it's a lot of things. But more than anything, mom was, she was very sweet. She was like probably one of the sweetest people you'll ever meet. Very humble. I think my middle sister probably takes a lot more of her personality than the rest of us. But mom she liked people. She was always very, I don't know, just very willing to give people, you know, like I don't even want to say she was a little bit naive when it came to people, but she was just that willing to.
I know you'd say that if we weren't here, but
But yeah. But yeah.
a lot. I mean,
Mom.
I know exactly how you felt. People who are open, but let's not go there. Let's not go there.
Yeah. That was her. She was very, very open, very giving, very. She was just lovable. I think a lot of people just really liked her. She was very likable. More than anything. But also, besides that, she really was a great mom, you know, to three of us girls. And she was always encouraging that, you know, you girls need to act like ladies, whatever that meant in her head. But, you know, she was the type of person where, you know, like you just need to be proper and sophisticated. That was mom. Like, you just always have to be a lady. She liked saying that to us. She's like, you have to be a lady. Ladies don't do that. Ladies don't do that. Of her. Imagine. And I was the complete opposite of whatever she thought ladies should do or shouldn't do.
Of course. And of course, she had the best intentions at heart with that, and having three girls also. Obviously, she was concerned with the things that all parents at that time were concerned with. Exactly, just making sure that the girls are proper.
Yeah, and she just loved. She loved the finer things in life. She liked beautiful things. My mother, she was always about. Oh, I need to do this to my house. She just really liked lovely things. I think if she was probably rich, she'd probably be one of those ladies that are just. Yeah, she really liked beautiful things. She liked to cook. She really she enjoyed the kitchen. I think. Okay, I get that bit of cooking from her, I think, but she was always in the kitchen, always trying things, always just trying new recipes and things like that. But yeah, she was fun, I must say. She was always so much fun to be around, to be quite honest. But yeah, that was mom. I'm pretty sure some people would say a lot of other things about her, but yeah.
Yes, definitely. And I think I like that gift. I was also definitely a much more a very different person from my mom, but I like these gifts that they get to leave that are valuable. Exactly. My mom was she was exactly the same, trying pie, trying fruitcake. A lot of the ways I remember her is just her placing things on the table like, what do you guys think?
Like, what is that?
Yes, so dedicated. Exactly. That motherhood that was so dedicated. I actually want to ask you in terms of, do you think that you thought more about who your mom is after she was gone than when you had her? Is this something that just came up?
I think so. I actually do think so. I think when people are still with us, we tend to be so consumed, about the everyday things of life and whatever. We never really go deep into thought about, who this person is. Like, to me, she was always just mom. I think everybody else who still has their mother is it's mom. What's the worst thing that can happen? Right? Like I said before, the problem is we always think we have time. I always think that you wake up in the morning and, your mom is always going to be there, or at least they're still going to be there for maybe a longer, however your mind plays it out. But yeah, I definitely did think about her as a person more after she passed, definitely.
More than as a mom, because I was picking that, and I thought that was something I'd want to just get out there. Not so much as a lesson or a lecture, but it really is true, especially with moms, because also our moms were so available, so yeah, it's almost like, oh yeah, this is the whole person. Like, those are the women who would describe themselves as wife and mom.
Definitely. That was her purpose. I think
Yep, I'm just wife and mom.
No, definitely. So yeah. I mean, when she was still alive, I don't even think I saw her much as, she was once a little girl who grew up, also who was just trying to find herself in this whole motherhood thing and being a wife. But she was just mom to me, because she's mom.
Exactly. I think that's what grief does. It places the whole person in the spotlight, right? And then a lot of other people bring facets of this person. Like you were saying now, I'm pretty sure there are people who say more.
They did say more at, funerals. People, it's just start talking and, they bring all these different facets about this person. And then you realize, I think one thing about death also is that you realize that this person that you held so close, as your mom, as, my mother, doesn't only belong to you, right? I think you realize that that she doesn't really belong to you. There's just so many other people that, have a different picture of who she is, what she was, and everybody else is just, bringing their own flavor about this life that you thought kind of belonged in your own little circle, or in your own little, So, yeah.
Exactly. That is so well said. I actually remember that people had the most beautiful things to say about her. Hey, people had the most I mean, people don't say bad things at funerals, but there's always that funeral where you can sense that there's a common theme. And the theme is that this person's heart was completely open. And I just remember thinking, whose child is my friend?
Right. You see, that's exactly what I told you. Like,
because everybody's talking about this open woman, and I was like, oh my God, she gave birth to the complete opposite.
Definitely
Crazy
not
girl.
open. Nothing
Anyway,
open about me.
no, I know. You're just like, why? Why must we do all this? Why must we put up all these, why should we care?
Definitely.
Amazing. So I think, friend, let's move on. And I think you've given a very clear picture of your mom. And I love your description. It really also is so true to your personality to speak like that, to not be too flowery. It's so refreshing. You already mentioned that it wasn't a death that could have been called anticipated. And do you want to tell us about the days leading up to the day you lost mom?
Yeah, so mom was, she started being sick, I think about a year leading to her passing. And it wasn't like sick, get hospitalized type of sick, but it was just complaining about maybe stomach ache. I think I can't eat tomatoes anymore because they make me sick. That type of things. I think this type of food doesn't make me feel well. And and then people start thinking you've got ulcers or weird stuff like that. Living in then again. So it was just, maybe I should stay away from these type of foods. And that was the illness. So she started getting sick. But I think going into 2017, then the illness kind of started becoming, a lot more frequent. So she would have like frequent stomach aches and things like that, just a lot more sick, if I should put it that way. But sick in a sense that she was still okay, in other aspects. She'd be sick one day and then tomorrow she's fine. And then she'd be fine for a couple of months. But fast forwarding to maybe 2 months before she passed, and she started becoming really, really sick. And that's when we got like a bit worried about her health. And I was like, oh gosh, she needs to see a specialist because I don't know what's going on. And I think that's when Dad took the liberty to take her to a specialist. And so, took her to one. And when she got there was just like, stomach things. We always have to do things like your colonoscopies and things like that just to rule out. I think at first they were suspecting something like colon cancer or whatever. So they did the tests and took the test to the lab. And when they came back, it was definitely cancer. But the problem with it was they couldn't point exactly where it originated. And also, it had already metastasized. So it had already spread quite a bit. That's what they could tell. The cancer had almost spread to her liver. So her liver was already very much compromised. And I remember very clearly because the actual doctor who did the first tests, who took the samples to go test that to the lab, I remember they took forever, to come back with the results. And we had already brought her up to Johannesburg to see another specialist because I was like, I think this is getting really serious and she needs to see somebody. And a friend of mine recommended another doctor that had treated colon cancer. So she was diagnosed with colon cancer a couple of months and she was going through chemo. She seemed to be doing well. So I was like, okay, I need that doctor. I need her to check my mother. But I remember calling this doctor back in Bethlehem to say, I'm looking for test results. You guys took a sample, but, there's a new doctor that needs to see my mom, but she needs to know exactly what type of test you guys did. And then this doctor said to me, I'll never forget. She said, she said, no, your mom's test came back and she definitely has cancer. And I know for a fact that, like with a very heavy Afrikaans accent, I know for a fact that I'm just trying to see. It's just like, I've seen patients with this kind of illness, they don't live for long. And I'm like,
oh no,
what the?
You've got
I'm not
to be
kidding you.
me.
Like, seriously, she's like, I've seen I only give them a couple of months to live. That's what he said. And I remember coming off that phone, like I was just like a zombie at work that day. I was just shattered. I was like, what? I was thinking, what is this doctor on about?
God.
But anyway, then she sent the lab
goodness.
results and, whatever. Then we sent them to her new doctors. And when they actually saw them as well, I remember the doctor was just saying, yeah, no, your mom is not in a very good condition, but it was definitely confirmed that it was cancer. And then he was like, I don't recommend we do chemo on her because of her age. No. He was like, I don't recommend we do surgery on her because of her age. I would recommend going straight to chemo, So I think in the whole process where they were so busy trying to set her up for her first chemo session, and I remember there were obviously other complications, and I think at that point her liver was already starting to fail a bit. It was really struggling. It was really, really struggling. I remember she had to have like a couple of blood transfusions at some point. But, my mom being my mom, she was still so positive, like, I'm feeling much better today. I'm going to be okay. And that was just it. And I think she never really made it to the first chemo session because she passed on, I think it was a Sunday. What day was it even? Oh gosh, it becomes so blurred. But
I think when you told me, you said it was a Sunday. I think I remember that. Yeah. I think you said it was a Sunday morning.
Yeah, the hospital called, and when you're woken up by like around 9 o'clock in the morning, and then this lady's like, "No, it's the hospital. I think you guys must come. Your mom is not doing too well." And part of me was just like, "Gosh, I wonder what's happening." But you want to stay positive for the sake of everybody else. Like, okay, let's just go see what's going on. But yeah. When we got there, she was already gone. Yeah.
Yep. I remember so well. In that alone, there's so much, I think. One that affirms why these kind of conversations are important. I think the fact that there's this really glaring thing that I'm hearing for the first time today, with that doctor is like, this is why we need to keep retelling these stories and also reconciling. Because I think every time you tell it, even for yourself, it's like, for me, I always feel like there's a layer of healing, but there's going to be a key lesson also that comes out of this for anyone who's listening and anyone who's a doctor and anyone. I don't have the words for that. There's so many things that are running through my mind. Was it racism? I cannot, for the life of me, begin to imagine why anyone would think that that was okay. Was it a lack of recognizing your humanity? Because when you say that, it's almost as if you see these people as half humans anyway. I can't fathom. That is the first what not to do when facing people who are staring death in the eye, the death of a loved one in the eye, and you come all nonchalant around. I mean, anyway, I honestly just wanted to register that as a moment that is utterly appalling for a medical professional. And
it was definitely like an eye opener that, medicine is not like you see it in the movies. It's just like, what?
It's definitely not like you see it in the movies, right? What a letdown. Because it's like, it's and now it's forever. And I think this is something that I've always wanted to talk about, how as medical professionals, it's forever engraved, and maybe she doesn't care, but it's forever engraved in the memories of the time leading up to your mom's loss, as the woman who said, these patients don't live very long. That's who is in your story. And I don't know about him and people like him, but I think what I want to know is, is that who they wanted to be when they signed up for the medical profession? That's always the question. Like, you wanted to be that person in people's story. Anyway, we could talk all day about this, but I also think that it's so important that you say these things, and I'm definitely grateful that you made the time to sit and to say these things, because these seem like everyday things, maybe to the next person, the same way that to him, your mom was just a patient, but to you was the whole world. Right. So these things may seem just like small things, but this is why I did this podcast. So thanks, friendly. You've already said one of the things you recall the most about it. And I do remember you telling me about arriving there on Sunday, and it looked just like she was sleeping. I'll never forget that you said she looked really peaceful, ironically.
Ironically, yeah, definitely. It's just like, well, she's about to wake up any minute, but you know that's not going to happen anytime soon. It's really almost like you're an autopilot for, for the next couple of months, I must say.
Yeah, exactly. You definitely expressing the sentiments of a lot of people when you say that, myself included. It is my default setting. Autopilot, engage, so that you can cope with what's happening. Because if you sit and marinate in its magnitude, would the funeral even happen? These are some of the questions
I don't
I've
even
asked
think
myself.
You would completely be lost in the magnitude of it.
Exactly. So it's almost a survival mechanism, like you say. You've already touched on how sudden it was. Do you think that's sort of a difference in how you grieved her?
I think that had a huge influence in how I grieved my mother. It was, I think, the suddenness of her passing. But also at the same time, I'm grateful that she didn't suffer, for like a long time.
Yes.
So there's always that tug between, oh gosh, I wish, she had stuck around for a little while longer. But then you're also thinking at what cost, for her as a human being.
At what cost?
And versus it happening quickly before we all had time to even process the idea that she might. So I think it's just, it is what it is. At the end of the day, there's not much you can do about it. But yeah.
Yeah, I get exactly what you're saying, and I think it's so loving of you to say that. But I always say also that for some people that becomes an interruption of the grief, because you sort of want to stop yourself from feeling by saying, no, but she it's okay. I'm grateful she didn't suffer, And I think I want to say that those who know about grief more than I do, counselors and people like that, always say that, of course, it's okay to feel grateful they didn't suffer. It's okay to feel grateful for their life. But at the same time, it's okay to fall apart completely and to want them back.
Exactly. That's why I'm like, it's such
them back even with all that.
A predicament, because you find yourself in this two opposing feelings to say, on the other side, you want them back. On the other side, you're just like, okay, well, at least they didn't suffer too much. And you hope that the passing, was bearable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you think about that moment a lot, about what she would have thought?
Yeah, definitely, all the time, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
All the time.
And how she felt. That's
I
true.
always just wonder.
That's true.
I struggle with, like, it's an ever consuming thought to say, I wonder in that moment, what was she feeling? Especially because we were not around, she passed with the nurses and stuff. But I don't know if it would have made it any different if we were there, but it's just like, you'll never know type of situation.
You'll never know. I will say this: the passing of a life is not. It's another thing that's not like in the movies. It may not
The
play
way.
out as it does in the movies exactly. On that note, what is it that surprised you as you settled into the reality and the grief? What surprised you about grief?
I think for me, it would be how it can make you, it's almost like it hits you like a ton of bricks, but then because also you are still amongst the living, you are still able to function. I think that's what surprised me too. I think what surprised me was to feel that amount of grief, but to still be able to function like a normal. I don't know if that makes sense.
You're making perfect sense. So many people, including myself, have said this exactly. To be, a tornado inside
To be
and
so
somehow,
dysfunctional inside, but so functional on the outside, I guess. For me, that's what it just blew my mind. It's just like, it's almost like you're
yep,
watching yourself, go through the
yes,
motions, almost like you're just somewhere up there, just having like a perfect view of yourself. But yeah, that's
oh
definitely
my
what.
God. You took the words right out of my mouth, literally. Like, seriously, I was about to say that. I was about to say, it's almost like you're watching yourself perform this role.
Yep.
You're like, wow, man, you really know how to do these things, because if you were acting as you're feeling inside, everybody would be
Exactly.
scared.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for saying that. Thank you for saying that, because I think that's, oh no, that this is another moment that I just want to sit in for a moment to say, for those for grievers and non-grievers, but particularly for non-grievers, I think it's important to know that there is a tornado going on, most likely inside anyone you see, who other people have come on and called it lots of things. Someone said an explosion, someone said this, but it is all the bad things you can imagine put together are happening inside this person. And you cannot say things like, oh no, I saw Refiloe and we were having wine and she was laughing and it's okay, she's fine. Because
You have no
you
idea.
need to sit for a moment. You have absolutely no idea, if you've never grieved, how possible it is to be okay, to seemingly be okay on the outside. Thanks, Friendly, for saying that. What was the hardest part for you, if you haven't already got into it? What was the hardest part? People have different things. People talk about when people leave. I mean, everyone has their different things that just sort of hit them the hardest, like, or a moment after, or something that drove home to you that this is my new reality.
So I think for me, it wasn't even about people leaving after the funeral. In fact, I couldn't wait for
Course.
them to.
I know. Oh my God.
Yeah, no, I don't want to lie about it, but yeah, I couldn't wait for the people to leave. To be quite honest, I was just like, when are all these people getting out of here? Like, just I know they mean well, but yeah, just leave. I think for me, I would say the hardest part was seeing the rest of my family grieve. So it was seeing my sisters go through the motions. It was seeing my dad go through the motions. It was seeing my aunts grieve for their sister. Yeah. So for me, that was definitely the hardest part. Yeah.
Definitely. Your dad, we talked about that a lot, about how hard it was for you watching him. But I just want to say, there's a lot of sisterhood in your family. There's so much sisterhood. There's your mom's sisterhood with your aunt. I think I know one. And then there's your guys' sisterhood. And it doesn't surprise me that that would be one of the things that was central to your own pain, to watch all this happening.
Yeah. No.
Do you think that there's anything that particularly helped you cope
Besides
with that laughter?
besides drinking vodka, you mean, or what?
Besides the vodka friendly. Oh my. I
Outside of
knew. I
vodka.
knew.
I think I wouldn't really call them coping mechanisms, but I think for me, it really was the closeness or the relationship that I actually have with my sisters, right? It almost felt like probably like a crutch or maybe a cushion to fall back on, if I can use that as a coping mechanism. But that's what kept me going through, and lots and lots of wine. So, yeah.
Yep. We're gonna need more
definitely
wine.
need more wine.
Definitely for this. I think that qualifies, friendly. I think that qualifies as a coping mechanism. It's a
Right?
support network. I can attest to the strong support network that you have in your sisters. And that's critical, really. That's critical, certainly.
It really is critical. And I think, I don't know how other people do it, but I think for me, the support network is really what helped me not to lose myself too much in the grief. But so yeah, definitely.
What is the one thing, I mean, obviously, in addition to, don't start blurting out painful truths like that doctor, but what is the one thing you would tell someone about how to deal with someone who is grieving?
I would definitely just say that the thing about grief is that when you look at people, like, on a surface level, you just don't know how deep or even what they're dealing with or what they're just going through. I think probably the best thing for anybody who's dealing with somebody who's grieving is to just be yourself. Like, don't try to, I think a lot of times people try to want to make people feel better. I don't know if that even makes sense. It's like they always just want to.
It does.
They want to help or maybe try and, but you can't. There's absolutely nothing that anyone can do for you in your grief. It's like, it's almost like it's you and your grief, and that's it. That's it. So the best thing really is to just be normal, that be supportive when needed, but I mean, don't try to help, or don't feel bad that you're not helping. I feel like people sometimes feel bad if they don't know what to say, and I'm always just like, why? There's nothing that you can say to me that's going to make me feel better about losing my mother. There's absolutely nothing you can say to me that's going to make me feel better about losing my mom. So I'm happy if you don't say anything, to be quite honest. You can just
better nothing than some of these other things we've heard. Most definitely. I like what you said about, it's like, it's literally your grief. Your grief. I said this actually to someone who hasn't grieved. We were sitting in a restaurant and I said, it was never lost on me that my grief is mine alone. Not once did I feel that anyone could help me carry this grief. They can support you. We just talked about support. So it's not contradictory. It's actually just that the grief itself is yours to bear. And that's it. Those are the words I used with that person. And I'm so glad you're saying that.
Definitely.
It definitely resonates with me that it's your thing. It's like your beast. You got to sit with it. You got to deal with it. And that's it. No one should feel the burden of making you feel better unless they are a counselor and they are employing certain tools that they have learned to help you with your grief. Are there moments that continue to be challenging in wrapping your head around
Definitely
the loss?
Friendly. I think it will probably be like a lifelong struggle with grief. Especially, I think for me, coming into motherhood myself, one of the challenging moments when you don't have your mom around. So it's like these little instances in life where, you know, you're constantly changing as a person as well, and there's certain triggers, right, that will just trigger you, and you'll just feel miserable or just feel so sorry for yourself. And yeah,
Yes.
I think that's just, you know, the package. It just comes with that package, and you just bear, and you just, you know, have to find ways to deal with these triggers when they do appear. But definitely there's hard moments. Some days are better than others, like I always tell people. Really.
Yep. Yeah, I think as your life, the big life changes can really spur on feeling sorry for
Definitely.
yourself and motherhood. I don't know how many times I've sat on the couch and just thought, yeah, why not me? Yeah, just keep piling these things on me. It's okay.
Right.
I can take it. Hit me, you know? And those are like the saddest, like most down, just dark moments of just, oh my God. I like how you said feeling sorry for yourself, because it can't be avoided.
I feel so terribly sorry. It's just like, oh wow, you poor thing.
Exactly. It's like, yeah, here you are meandering about the world without your mama.
How do you like that?
You know, and when we, you know, you are super private. You're very private. You do want to keep your cards close to your chest. You keep a close circle. So I know for a fact that not many people get to know that. So I think it's important that just this once we're saying this thing about how dark and how lonely and how, just dark and lonely and helpless. I think that's another word, helpless. Because when you like solutions and when you think you're strong, grief will show you that, well, go be strong somewhere else, because this you're going to feel. You're going to sit here and you're going to feel this.
Definitely.
Friendly. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome, Friendly.
I don't know that I've laughed this hard in any of the episodes. You have brought and definitely lots of refreshing insights. I can't wait to share it. I can't wait to have chop it, and then I can't wait for our listeners to hear it.
Thank you so much for having me, Friendly. I really enjoyed my time. I mean, I'm not one to go this deep about grief, so it's actually a first for me. But yeah, it went surprisingly well.
At the same time, it's healing for me. You know how healing it is for me to sit here and to listen to this. I get a layer of healing from each word, honestly speaking.
Yeah.
So thank you, and say hi to Ree, and thank her for giving you the support and the space.
In her house. All right.
Thank you for spending time on this episode of Granules of Grief with Refiloe. I do hope that you got even just a granule of what you need. You can find more information on the podcast on my social media profiles, on Instagram at Refiloe Letokot and Refiloe Letokot on my Facebook page, as outlined in the description box. I hope to see you there too.